So today I'm going to speak about the tech-powered experiences at Walmart with Gen AI. Gen AI is a very hot topic. I know it's going to be very interesting for you guys as well. So let's get started. We have a lot to cover. Walmart, as you know, is a very e-commerce giant. We are into adaptive retail, but there's a lot about Walmart that is not common knowledge. For instance, the Walmart Tech Center of Excellence that is opened right in IISc. So big hands on that. It is a great encouragement for technology per se, but at Walmart also we have lot of innovations that keep on happening. So technology is a very backbone of whatever we do at Walmart, and customer is number one. So whatever we are trying to do with Walmart, we want to benefit the customer, and there are large scale of customers. So the benefit is going to be manifold. There are a lot of numbers here. You can see we have lot of customers and members, and we provide service across the globe. So yeah, this is as you go along, you will understand that Walmart innovation is such a backbone that we have demo days, hackathon. We have going to have a recent Smart Tech Summit, which is all about what innovation each team is doing and presenting it across. So there's a lot of innovation culture that keeps happening, and we'll go into Gen AI per se in this session. So enough about me. You already got a good introduction. Um, so today I'm going to touch only about a few basic technology pieces that we deliver at Walmart. These are somehow the backbone of almost any retail industry that you see, or in fact any other industry that you see, right? Because if you think about it, search is a very critical area where we keep on investing. Because the whole point is how the customer can benefit or get the actual intent, whatever he or she wants, can be achieved faster. Recommendations and personalization is a very key area because we want to fine tune it for perspective to your perspective. Marketplace, again, whatever our third party sellers or first party sellers are doing, we have a very clear visibility, and there are a lot of tooling that happens here to give more clear dashboards and stuff like that, but it goes really very deep because that's a whole backbone of your retail industry. Platform, there's no industry that goes without platforms, whether it is security or any other data tooling that you're doing. Platform forms a very essential foundational layer that what are we doing. Although I will not cover each of them in great detail, I'm just giving you that some of the tech powered experiences, right, that we happen to have in Walmart, and you might also relate with it because some of you might be working on that. Tools, again, is not related to just tools to achieve efficiency in the system that you're working, but also developer productivity. How can developer become more productive to achieve the business goals? But what is a common theme here is we are continuously improving to achieve gains for our customers and members across the world. So this is continuous improvement with technology. So not living behind technology, sometimes it happens that you're just focused on business, but you are not taking technology with you, which can achieve you much further gains. And this is very apt for today's session because we are talking about Gen AI, which is pretty much an cutting edge technology. So giving you a pretty much a basic concept, right? In the last decade or so, we have spent a huge amount of time and effort in doing search. As a species, we can be like a curious cat. We are interested in everything. So initially what started as a defense DARPA project having some link, we started becoming curious about everything, whether it was internals of a motor or a car or even to food recipes, right? So today internet is bloating with all kind of data, but what is the essential trick, right? How can you search from that immense amount of data and get the answer in millisecond? So that becomes a really niche problem statement. And many of the big tech has actually invested a lot of time, energies to get it right. And I mentioned some of the competitors here who have been working on the search area where to get the data from the internet or the World Wide Web. In this sense, right, you will get one gist. There's a lot of data and lot of link appear on the page, right? Pagination was done, and what is a very funny observation is most of the users didn't even click further than top three link, maybe even two, right? So we were really either ADHD, attention deficit disorder, which we wanted the data really fast, and in the top link, we were not really bothered with many pages, right? Those were really a waste of effort in a very, if you bottom line it, right? But Yahoo Answers or Yahoo Search, right? They had a very good phenomena where they were ahead of their time. They were thinking about Yahoo Search was Yahoo Answers, not to have link, but answers itself. So that is a very paradigm shift that they had, and I would say it was ahead of their time, because you actually hit the bullseye that the user wanted the answer, not the link. So eventually, after some time, we see this search is very tiring, right? But we really want to search. We really want to know. We are a very curious species. And that's how when ChatGPT came, it just took the world by the storm, right? It happened only a few years back. But now everybody is glued either on their mobile with n number of different offerings by ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity, anything. Each of you has something or other on your hands right now, right? Where you can ask the question, you will get the answer. No link, nothing, but it is giving you the answer. What is actually happening is now this answer is not from the knowledge base. It is not reading from a link and giving you the answer. It is actually generating text. So that's a key phenomena here, right? We are having some large language models which are able to generate text, right? And it can happen with n number of questions. You can while away your whole day asking interesting questions, getting interesting answers. So that's what ChatGPT. But if you see, you were getting exact answers, no stooling, you were getting it all there, right? But this generative AI, large language models, I already made a mention of it. What it is all about. We know it is a breakthrough technology. Everybody in some way or other is doing it, using it. So today's my session is to deep dive into that and give you a perspective how Walmart is taking the technology by its own and using it to deliver value to the customers. Okay. So this was the one. So first slide we mentioned is that you are able to generate some kind of test. It is not reading from a document, giving it to you. It is generating. This is again a man or person asked about something which we call in the machine language terms a prompt. So when a prompt is given, like give me an armchair in shape of avocado, the model is able to give you different options to it. So this is generating an image. So we live in a world where you can generate text, you can generate an image, and that's not all. You can now generate videos, and this was really it created a lot of storm in Twitter. So you know the videos were created, and the Twitter was right creating a lot of different kind of videos, and it was thought for a second that movies will not be needed at all, right? Because you have now your own imagination. You want to see exactly what you want to see, rather than going to some movie and not getting exactly what you want, right? Not just a genre, but exactly what you want to see. You can see like here the prompt is that a woolly mammoth is there, and he's going through the snow, creating the snowstorm. So you're getting that. Um, but that's not all. So you could see it generated text, it generated image, it generated a video, but also mind blown that it can generate that or whatever you want, right? Though it is not perfect. It was not perfect like the best of programmers, but at least it is a skeleton to start with. And when I say not perfect, there is a sense that it is getting nearly perfect. So now we are in this era where it is able to generate textual data, whatever you need. It depends from the prompt. There would be your question, the image, the prompt. There will be exact prompt that you have put, and the video, whatever is your prompting thing there. So what you see is a common thread there. There's something that the user is asking. The system is able to respond very accurately and along that lines, right? Before we actually deep dive further, I want to give you a quick look how recent this technology is, right? And it is actually taking the whole world by its rhythm and the momentum, right? But if you want to go back, the real history is very big and very long. The ML machine learning industry, the NLP research industry also started about if I was lenient, I would say about 6 decades or 5 decades earlier, right? But very short history where we really started making progress and improvement is when we have the 2017 very seminal transformer paper, which is Attention is All You Need, where it started talking about the encoder decoder architecture and how we can actually have the embeddings and encodings and how it would actually be mapped, right? It's basically a deep learning neural network architecture where how the system can understand. You have to think that first it did not think about image generation, it did not think about video. This came very later and only recently. The textual was one thing that they wanted to understand. And language is really, really very complex, right? In India, we are supposed to know because India has like 50 odd languages, which are even very tricky. If you try to learn a new language, you will know the nuances are very different. Now consider the machine has to learn all that thing. So when I say a machine, it is not just learning English, but for this discussion today, we'll just say it is English, a large language model, but it is multilingual. So you can possibly make it understand Chinese, Japanese, or any other language, right? So what is the main theme is it has to understand language, the nuances of language, and there's a lot of thing in language, right? Sarcasm, irony, humor, all those things it has to understand, right? So for that, we started building the deep learning models where the neural network architecture was given birth to. But it is very recent, right? 2017 is where actual transformer architecture came across. Most of the models that you see right now are based on that architecture, but they are different, and we can speak about that later. And if you see, 2018 is when the first GPT model came into existence, where people started it for fun, right? But the real GPT, which was mature, came only 2022. And at that time, GPT, which was a mature model, was actually a closed, right? It is OpenAI, and you don't know what is happening behind the scene, but it is capable of doing a lot of stuff, right? After that came the 2023, where we have the Llama model from Meta, and which is really open source in that sense, but there are a lot of uh, more versions around it. But you have the first open source version, which you can understand, you can start understanding what is the magic behind the scenes. And then gradually now, 2024, if you go and see the leaderboard or anything, or even if one day you will see a new version coming up. But there are a lot of range of variety of large language models that are published daily, published with different nuances, published with different metric or evaluation thing. But we are spoiled for choice, is how I sum it up. We have lot of options to use the technology, and it is sometimes open source as well, but we'll go into that detail. So the future essentially is, and we live in such a wonderful era that we are the people who are alive when this is happening, and we will be the people who will pushing forward to the AGI thing, right? Which is really artificial general intelligence. That's a whole upper goal, right? What we're doing in small pieces and nuances will somehow add up to it, right? We will have something which is very, very intelligent, much. And so the challenge is it has to be much intelligent than the average human, that it can compass, but even higher than the best of the human or the expert human. And there are a lot of things that will come around it, with the responsible use, the bias, and all those things, right? Fair use of AI, that will become a larger discussion how we take it forward. But the upper goal is that. So in 2024, like I said, we are spoiled for choice. We have lot of closed and open models, right? And when I say open LLM and closed LLM, it is what you understand is right. It is open source, right? But in LLM, there's a lot of things that uh, may not be shared. Like even in the open LLM, you might not see the training data, the data on which it is trained on. You might have open visibility on the source architecture, the IP, everything should be shared. So you can see it in GitHub primarily. But here in the closed LLM, you would not have any visibility what the architecture is, how are they doing it internally. So that's how it is a closed architecture, closed LLM. There's a lot of differences around it, and that's what makes it very beautiful combination, but all of it is available for us to use. Most important is this, when you say a closed LLM, and one of the example is GPT, which all of you are familiar. OpenAI and Gemini has Google and all these other versions, right? They are closely guarded secret from the corporation and technology companies, right? Um, but the area is once they are able to closely guard it, they are also able to focus it intensely what they want to deliver, right? In the open environment, you are open to collaboration, you have a broader community, you can fall back on each other's shoulders, how you have invested, what have you done, what is the use case, and you can build upon each other's successes. So it is really, the momentum is very, very high in open, but then sometimes it becomes ad hoc. It may not be as much focused. Also, there's a little bit debate that happens that maybe OpenAI is, Open LLM is not that unbiased. But it all depends, and there are fair nuances when you say if this is more biased or that is more biased, or this is more open to liabilities and this will be keeping you safe from liabilities. But the whole compass on that is how to have a responsible AI and fairness in AI and unbiased AI. That's a whole different topic, but it is a very important topic, and each can handle it with a well thought out strategy. So I think that is the main thing. And here, I know Llama 3, everybody must have been in the news and seen it, just was opened a couple of days back, and it has gained up so much momentum. There are already thousands or 10,000 models built upon it. So that falls into open. You have open weights, you have open source, may not have the openness in the training data. So we have talked about a lot about LLM, right? But technically going the one layer deep and still on the surface, right? Because if you think this is a very magical technology, what happens beneath the surface is really 1,000 times complex, right? So if you start looking into GitHub, trying to understand, it is a lot, but the essential foundation is deep learning, neural network, the transformers. But again, there's divergent architecture, like I mentioned, right? For instance, model architecture, most of them were built with transformers, but in recent times, if you have seen Recurrent Gamma, which is an open version from Google, is built upon a state space architecture. So it's a taking it forward. And every time there are new papers that keep releasing where you have new innovations that are happening within LLM, which make things better. In a sense, that is Recurrent Gamma, for instance, is a smaller model, but it is able to be memory efficient. So there are different things here that make an impact in the final LLM and what it can do for you, right? I mentioned a lot about training data already, right? So training data is something that, for instance, the model is trying to understand the language. So it has to be trained on a lot of data. But like I mentioned, it is not a reference to that knowledge. So every time it is ingested, the data is not really ingested. It is not going to recall from memory. It is going to recall from how it has the word representation of that language. So it is, in a sense, like a human brain. And that has to be the case because it's trying to compete with the human brain intelligence at the final goal with the AGI, right? So it is, in a sense, building neurons. And if you understand deep learning, neurons is a very fundamental component it talks about. And then again, there's multiple camps around here. People who say then don't equate it to human neurons or human brain, or people who say, yes, it is exactly how it is, right? But the internals, like I said, are very, very complex. The training data is what is a corpus on which it is going to be trained on. And internally, it is like how you are tokenizing the data. For instance, just understood English, and you have to tokenize the data, and which means you are splitting the data and making the system understand. Now, the model doesn't understand anything like a textual data or a string or anything like that. It has to understand everything in mathematical terms. So it has to have a mathematical representation of the data. In a layman terms, you could say tokens are nothing but words, but it could be like character, or it could be a subword, or anything like that. But you would have different tokenizer, and they're all, many of them are available in open source as well. Like if you have the BPE, byte pair encoding, or sentence piece, or tick token, there are different ways of how you break the textual data into tokens, so that the system can understand. And from there, the model or the transformer model architecture will take over, right? It can understand the data now. Now there are two types of tokens, right? Input tokens and output tokens, and both are really very important. So when you are thinking about using LLM, the cost and everything will depend on how many input tokens do you want the system to understand, right? Like if you're in a chat model, you are giving a big question, it has to really understand all those tokens, right? Think about in terms of the LLM. So training data is essentially what it has consumed, but it will not keep it in memory. what it will keep as a actually a boiled down representation of the data, right? And parameters, you will keep on hearing that they are like 7 billion parameters, 30 billion parameters, or 130 billion. So there are a lot of models which have parameters there, and larger the parameters, the larger you have a sense that the model can understand. It has internally, it is just weights and biases within the deep neural network, and we refer to as parameters with the hyperparameters. But internally, if you have to understand layman's language, it is how tuned the model is to understand so many different ways. Like a human can understand sarcasm, so it is tuned to that, right? So there are different parameters in, and you will understand it with different variants of model, right? Now there's also a thing that it need not be that always the larger number of parameters is more successful. It can be even the smaller parameters now. So initially the competition was that how many parameters I have. Like initially the competition was how many training data I have trained it in 15 trillion tokens. My model is trained with 15 trillion tokens, which means large amount of data it has been trained in. If I say my my model is 30 billion parameters, it is highly sensitive and more powerful. But now in the recent times, the competition is actually on the reverse side. With the lower set of parameters, how efficient your model is. And if you see the benchmark, you will see the lower parameter, they are saying like Gamma 2B is as efficient as that other model, which has a larger number of parameters or something like that, right? And similarly with Llama, it keeps on happening, and most of the open and closed, you will see a smaller parameter version as well to enable on device and other, because on devices like mobile, and you will prefer a smaller parameter model. And the different tasks, right? So if you see the benching, the standard benchmark is done with different metrics, whether language understanding, test summarization, or mathematical capabilities. Some of them are the things which it is able to do. Now in the LLM, how to choose, it is dependent on your use case. I say the state of art changes because it changes very fast, right? So if you're away for 2 days, the state of art changed. So prompt engineer is one important thing where we say that different prompt. I already mentioned the prompt is one way for the model to understand, right? So English is the new programming language, though you should not take it lightly that that's the only thing I have to do. Actually, understanding the model is a very complex stuff, and that is where the real trick is. And you will notice different controls there that make it the most efficient, right? And avoid it from prompt ingestion as well. But LLMs can hallucinate, right? They can actually give you false answers. Though LLM error rate is very, very less than the human error rate, but when it fails, it is going to be very bad, right? Because one thing is when we have started treating it as reliable. So that is the main thing. So avoiding it, we have to do it with advanced prompting, which is either the guided prompting where we explicitly say, like we say to a child, if you don't know it, don't give the false answer. And different ways of actually making it better, like with the prompting. I have to rush because the time limit. RAG is one of the way to, if you have your own data, right, you can avoid the LLM to hallucinate by guiding it correctly with your data, and we use it at Walmart. And fine tuning is another way, right? Because you have pre-trained model, you have instruct model, chat model, you want to fine tune it for your use case, your data, right? This is another way to have high quality and fast hallucinations. Evaluation is a must because at every stage you want to evaluate the accuracy and how it is performing. And we also have the evaluated framework, which we have automated using LLM. And again, we monitor it, but it is internal use. So choosing it all depends on throughput that you want, the latency, the cost also, right? That is very important. Like I said, you can have the same benefit with a lower model, with a lower parameter model. If you're fine-tuned, you have decreased the size, done quantization and stuff like that. You have actually decreased the size. You can reduce the cost as well. So you are leveraging GenAI, Walmart. We are typing the use case. Now, customer intent of whatever it is in the natural language format, he is thinking about it and we get the answer right away with form of different categories there, and you get all different set of categories and answer. So maybe the internet here, but yeah, so you're getting the categories and different items. It enables the customer to know that we understood the intent with so much different areas. It has actually given you different categories, allowed you different items in the category, enabled the customer satisfaction, and actually allowed the customer to add the item as well, right? So the whole journey has been very satisfactory to the customer. In fact, a private research equity firm in US did a whole independent study on our new feature, which we just released in last 6 months, and it has been marked as one of the most innovative feature till date, right? Till date is hard to say, but okay. So, yeah. So you could on the while you are traveling, you can say something which what you are thinking and what you are writing is not too much of impedance mismatch is happening there, right? So it is actually enabling. Here, if you can click again. So if you are on a road trip and your kid is harassing you, you are actually typing it and you are getting the data again. So there are a lot of A/B testing, experimentation that gets done here to deliver what is the right value for the customer, right? So it is not just the categories that you see as an from the LLM coming and approximating the whole experience, right? Giving you the right answer, the right items. It is also the item summarization that we do, which is done by the GenAI LLM. And you have like summaries if you see, and the reviews that will come on the. So from the discovery side till the translation, right? We are making sure the customer is satisfied, right? Substantiating the results with the summaries and the reviews. So we are getting this whole experience done. In brief, right, we are actually understanding the customer intent. We did the NLP, we did the vector database with the RAG model. We had the whole flow where we had a classifier to understand whether this is the content is right. So we never ever have a failed answer due to LLM, right? So you have to manage the LLM progress as well as you orchestrate and show the experience to the user. And there are different cycles, right? The most important thing is you cannot see the LLM is a free thing. It has to be used correctly. It will have a great impact with the number of GPUs and other things that you use, right? With the cost itself, right? How you use it? Should you use a cache? Which machine type should you use? Should you use a TPU B5E or what has to be used, right? It will make. It will help you to decide basically because those are very important parameter. What is the latency that you need, whether it is a first time to the first token or the whole tokens output tokens that you get, how much time it is taking, what is a reasonable time for you, and all that, right? So with the throughput and the cost that you can manage in that particular system. So how can you grow your journey with LLM, right? It is a very highly momentous area. You can hug the Hugging Face because Hugging Face is one place, or even Kaggle, where you can understand all the different LLM models and what is the approach they are taking. It keeps on changing every day. So the base foundation remains the same, but the models and the growth story there is immense. So go there, create an account, get your token, start working on it. You will have LLM Studio, which you can actually start using the model right away. And for you use cases, different prompts, you can try what works best for you. Now, like I said, right, prompt engineering is a big, you will have a book, really book also on that. But it is a big area where you can, and the fine tuning is again another very big area where you can actually use SFT trainer, do quantization, and make your system better for your use case. If you have your own set of questions and answer which are very finely vetted, they can help make your fine-tuned model a real success. And you can actually, with fine-tuning, you are reducing the size. So you are essentially saving the cost, delivering high performance. No SOTA is know the state of art, and keep on building GenAI applications and deliver value. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Thank you.